It's one of my top 10 movies of all time is Casino. And in that movie, Robert De Niro plays Lefty Rosenthal. That's his character. Joe Pesci plays Tony the Ant Spilatro, tough guy. And Lefty Rosenthal was years and years ago in Las Vegas. I moved there. He had just left the air. The mob was sort of moving out when I moved in, but they were there for about 3 or 4 years, and now it's very corporate. But Lefty Rosenthal was this guy that ran I think it was the Frontier, and he had a television show, and he would just bring on guests and like a Sinatra and talk sports gambling, and he ended up surviving a car explosion and being a professional sports gambler. But that's a real business. These guys are pros. I mean, these guys there's 60 Minutes had a piece on the guy about 5 years ago, and I forget what his name is. He's like the big dog in the country. He's got private jets and owns golf courses. It's not making stuff up. There's skill here. It's funny. The stock market, everybody acknowledges, well, the stock market's all about skill. If you invest in index funds, you'll do as well as you will with a stockbroker. I mean, it's funny what we think is skill and what is not skill. The stock market, that's not risky. There's no risk there. I mean, I don't know stocks. Okay, that's why a lot of I rely on people. But I can tell you, Apple's pretty good. Does my broker have any insight that Apple's going to go up or down over the next 5 years? It's kind of guessing. You don't know. If brokers knew when the market crashed, they'd sell right before it crashes. They don't know either. It's just funny to me what is considered skill and what is considered luck. I don't know. I think it takes a lot of skill to win a fantasy football league. I think it takes a lot of skill to win a fantasy football league. Now, fantasy football is a little easier than fantasy baseball. I hate fantasy baseball, and the only reason is because what happened. It's so hard because baseball there's so much inventory. Years ago, when I lived in Florida, I tell the story. I've run into weird people and odd life circumstances. So when I was a sportscaster in Tampa, I was a weekend guy. And so the weekend guys, we all golfed together because we all had Mondays and Tuesdays off. So I was new to Tampa, so I would go golfing or hang out with Kyle Kraska was a guy. Kyle's now in San Diego. He's a sports anchor. He's the guy that got lived about a year ago. You can look it up. Kyle Kraska, San Diego sportscaster. So a house painter came in and shot him in his driveway. Good God. So anyway, at the time, he was playing rotisserie baseball, and this was my first experience with it. And I was more into baseball than I am now. And we're sitting there going to have dinner one night, and we're sitting in a bar, and we're just talking sports and our lives, and just talking about games. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the conversation, we're eating our shrimp pasta, having a beer. He's like, yeah, woo! I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, Tim Raines got a single. I'm like, the game's 8-1. I know, I just won my rotisserie night. And I'm like, that's a pathetic way to live. I'm not going to scream at singles in June. Football's different. Now that DraftKings, you can play it 1 week and not play it the next. And I think fantasy football is much easier than fantasy baseball. Fantasy baseball, to win at fantasy baseball, you have to give up your social life. You have to just grind. And the guy, Keith Olbermann's a legendary fantasy baseball player. Keith is a legendary player. Keith's on his computer all day. You got to be on your computer massive amounts of time. You don't have to with football.